I'm Susan Emmerson from Boston and formerly of Bloomington, and I'm glad to be back to be showing some of my newest work at the McLean County Art Center. It's different in that I've begun to focus first on the losses associated with natural disasters. I was doing an artist residency in September 2017, and that was a month that saw hurricanes Harvey and Maria and Irma, as well as wildfires in California. And those images from the news and all that I knew that was happening in the atmosphere just caused me to refocus my work into depicting the destruction and trying to get viewers of my work into thinking deeply about the loss, the human loss, the emotional loss, not just the physical destruction, and then the ongoing nature of that emotional trauma. Then lately, over the past year to year and a half, with COVID and everything that happened in 2020, it refocused my work on loss, not only physical loss, as you see with, evictions, again, natural disasters and that sort of thing, but this loss of home, this loss of a sense of safety, and all these things went into the new work I've been making. I've gone back to drawing, which I really loved, and my work is much more realistic now. My work shows homes falling apart, being destroyed, and I use these as metaphors for what we as human beings are feeling with things falling apart, things that can't be repaired. So that's really been my focus with the work that's in this show. I see it in the imagery. A lot of her work shows things crumpled, kind of looking discarded, that sort of thing. The title of the show, With One Stone, refers to killing two birds with one stone. The idea of an event having multiple effects, bringing in a little bit of the idea of like multitasking, but I also think of it as I get an image of a stone dropping in water and how the waves spread. So that's the connections that I see. Yeah, I love making work where I put these little details in and these little secrets to discover, and I really have fun with it. I lived here from 1988 until 2015, raised my kids here, and I'm still very close to a lot of people here.
My name is Lisa Walcott. I live in Holland, Michigan, teach sculpture at Hope College. I went to Trinity Christian College in Palos Heights, Illinois for my undergrad, studied painting actually, and then I went for sculpture at Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. The work for this show, we were working around the theme of with one stone, thinking about the idea of cause and effect, and thinking about the idea of how one thing can cause many things to happen. There's also a little bit of maybe a darkness to that because the implied kill two birds, right, is part of that phrase. So we're kind of playing with the idea of destruction, and in the case of my work, I was thinking a lot about the way that life just kind of breaks down, maybe a lack of organization, or where, crumpled items of clothing get strewn about, creating composition within the space. I'm really interested in small moments becoming vivid, so kind of highlighting those through whether it's making a sculpture or creating a gesture that is also like a kinetic sculptural piece. Definitely. Well, yeah. So the drawings I made from home, it was a daily practice during shelter in place. So I was being really reflective about my position in the world, which was, within a space. But also all of the layers of my life had become compounded. I was teaching from home, I was parenting from home, I was living from home. So it was just an interesting moment to reflect on how that space was sheltering me, but also sort of like making chaos around me, I guess. The drawing, so I've often done sort of reflections within space. I did these, it was called the kitchen table series, where I would draw at the kitchen table and I would sort of just make marks based on what was around me. In this case, I was making marks based on, I would take a handful of, I had this little bag of studio detritus, things that I thought were interesting compositional marks. And I'd throw them down on the page, and wherever they landed, which was by chance to begin with, became sort of permanent in the way that I rendered them. So I was taking something that was kind of cast off and spending time in rendering it. I was taking an act of chance and making it permanent. So that act of like permanence and impermanence felt very relevant to that moment in time. I haven't shown a lot of cast work, so that I have 2 casted pieces, a sock and a pair of pants in this show. And I think it also relates to that idea of like making something cast off more permanent. Like if I had just added a regular fabric sock to the top of the armature, that maybe would have worked, but there's something to changing it and transforming it into something more permanent, like plaster, that makes you think about it differently. So it's kind of that like solidifying of the temporary, I guess. Yeah, I think the power of the object and the power of the familiar object, sometimes the use of it also plays into it, right? If this object has a history, if it's been in my house or it's come from a certain place, but often it's more the fact that I want the viewer to recognize it, and I want to tap that, maybe their subconscious relationship with a lamp or a blanket or something like that, where they already are engaged with the work based on just a memory that they're conjuring. Yeah, Cranbrook absolutely changed my life. I loved the openness of the program, where a lot of it is it's studio based, and you get out of it what you put in. So if you put in hard work and you sign up for all the critiques and go to all of the lectures, you get a really good education. And so, yeah, I think my work, I found it there, I would say. I'm working on strands of it still, and it's developing, but I'd say, I was really interested in the idea of beauty when I got there and transition. But it was while I was there deeply investing in my work that I figured out how to add kinetics and how to make motion part of that idea of transition. It wasn't the idea anymore, it was actual transition. So I think it was just that deep, it's like a 2-year residency in a way. It's just that deep investment in your own practice. I would do it again if I could. Yeah, Susan and I, we met in the gallery for the first time in person, but we had been corresponding and connecting via Zoom calls for a couple years, actually, because our show was supposed to be a year ago. So we've been in touch in this relationship for a pretty long time. And there's been a really nice overlap, I think, in our interests of sort of deterioration in the way that things break down. We approach it really differently. But she's been a really, for one thing, just a generous artist to work with. She's been really, even, choosing spaces. She's highlighting my work within the gallery, and she was encouraging me to explore ideas that I wasn't very clear on. So she's just been a really generous person to work with. And then, yeah, I think the fact that our work is different is part of what's interesting in this show too, that we're not just talking about the interior space of home, but she's talking about the exterior, but the meaning of the exterior comes from the interior. So we're kind of able to riff off of each other in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own, so.